Welcome back to Yahoo Finance Live. As we've rolled on in this pandemic, we've seen a lot of benefits that the government provided start to roll off. And one important one, if you hold student loan out there, federal student loans, next year after January, deferment of those student loan payments are going to roll off. And that is going to impact a lot of Americans that do hold student debt. In fact, to one survey that we've been tracking here from the Student Debt Crisis Center highlights that about 89% say that when payments are set to resume on February 1st, they're not going to be financially ready to start to pay back those loan payments. In fact, 1 in 5 say they're never going to be financially secure enough to resume payments again. Pretty shocking statistics there. And for more on that, I want to bring on our next guest, the Student Debt Crisis Center Executive Director, Cody Hounanian, joins us right now. And Cody, when we look at maybe those statistics, obviously a lot of Americans may have gotten used to not paying back those loan payments. But when you turn it back on, I was shocked to see the number that high in terms of people not ready to do so.
Yeah, 89% say they're not ready to resume payments in February. And I should note that's also 9 out of 10 people who are fully employed as well. So these are people that, despite the obstacles created by the pandemic, are in a decent employment and financial situation, but that burden of student loan debt is just so heavy. In fact, numbers just came out this week. If we restart student loan payments, it's going to take $85 billion out of the pockets of Americans in just next year alone.
Cody, can you talk a bit more about that burden, though? I mean, we're sort of trying to differentiate between a crisis that existed before the pandemic and to what extent the pandemic has exacerbated. If you're talking about a majority of those 89% being employed, what are the additional burdens they've had to take on?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. So student debt has been a crisis for years now. It's well documented that student loan debt has prevented people from purchasing homes. It's slowed down family formation. It's really had an impact on the formation of small businesses and entrepreneurship. So this is, a long-term issue. As we've seen the pandemic progress, we saw last year a lot of student loan borrowers were impacted by job loss, reduced hours. Obviously, that has a huge strain on people's finances. What we're seeing coming out of this last year as the pandemic we thought was going to improve, and we don't know now with so much uncertainty. But what we're seeing is that borrowers are employed, and yet the burden is huge. And so our survey found that a quarter of borrowers say that 1/3 of their income will go towards student loan payments if we restart payments in February. That's really concerning to me, particularly when you think about today's news that inflation hit a 40-year high. Folks just cannot afford to have all of their income go towards these student loan payments when the cost of just living, the cost of paying rent, food, all of these basic necessities is increasing day by day.
Yeah, I guess it wouldn't be that big of an issue if wages were rising too, though, because you have dollar-denominated debt there, supposedly better. If you're earning more, you can pay back a loan easier. If inflation is there to, I guess, maybe help you, but not the case if you got to spend a lot and you have no savings left over and can't afford the student loans anyway. So there is that to, I guess, consider. When you look at maybe we just showed the chart there, state by state, and I guess whether or not this problem's improving or getting worse at all for students now coming into this space. I mean, when you look at maybe new students out there, part of the benefits there were to kind of go into education to maybe prevent students from having to take out loans in the first place. I mean, what kind of grade would you give to whether or not the student debt crisis is getting any better?
Well, I mean, the root cause of the student debt crisis really hasn't improved significantly, and that cause is the enormous cost of college. In fact, I'm greatly concerned that the cost of college is going to increase in the years ahead because schools have been impacted so much by the pandemic. Enrollment has been down. Investment in higher education in many areas is still well below where it was at before the Great Recession. So this is still a persistent issue. When it comes to addressing the issues that face people who are already in repayment, though, over the last year, there has been a great awakening. Folks are more aware of the student debt crisis. They're demanding that lawmakers and the president himself address this issue. And in fact, over the last few months alone, we've had some significant victories relieving debt for people who work in public service, who are totally disabled, who have been defrauded by predatory for-profit schools. So there has been great progress, but there's obviously so much more work to be done. and our lawmakers and political leaders can take much bolder action.
Yeah, obviously, we're going to see if anything happens there. There were a lot of promises there out on the campaign trail when it came to student debt. This did not kind of pan out, but appreciate you coming on here to chat with us, Cody. We'll wrap there. Student Debt Crisis Center Executive Director. Thanks again for the time.